Welcome to LaunchPad Live, Spokane's Business Connection Show. I'm Bill Kalibas.
And I'm Monique Cotton. It's a phrase that we hear a lot, clean and green. But today we're talking about clean and green with a local twist.
That's right. How many times do we think of California when we talk about green energy? Did you know we've got quite a few clean and green companies right here in the Inland Northwest?
Well, I didn't know that, but sounds like we're talking about it. We'll talk about that and much more. LaunchPad Live starts right now.
All right, so welcome, and we're going to be talking about our industry update, and we are very fortunate to have Lynn Parrish. She's the Deputy Editor of the Journal of Business. Welcome, Lynn.
Thanks, Bill.
Lynn, thanks for being here. You have a really good pulse on the local industry here in Spokane as far as clean and green. So can you describe that to us? What is the clean and green industry like here?
Well, first of all, the Inland Northwest is well positioned for what has transpired nationally in terms of an emphasis on clean and green. We have actually heritage in that industry with Avista and its hydropower, which is inherently clean and green. But along with that, we've seen some other companies sprout up, some organically and some through Avista.
Well, it seems like Avista has really been sort of a hub for companies that have been spun off and really at the forefront of a lot of this entrepreneurial activity. Is that what you've been? Is that what you've discovered?
Yeah, it has. Itron has its roots in Avista Relion, which develops energy fuel cells, has its roots in Avista. So, yeah, I think that's a fair statement.
What does it mean to be a clean and green company?
Energy efficiency and cleaner energy production. So when you talk about energy generation, we've all seen the hydropower dams downtown. That's a big part of it. But there's also the wind farms that are popping up around eastern Washington and central Washington, and you're going to see a lot more of that activity.
Any hot stories you guys are working on, other than maybe even outside of clean energy?
We actually, on the clean, we have a Sustainable Green Northwest special report that we're going to be publishing in an upcoming issue. We haven't identified the stories we're working on that yet, but we have that coming up, and it's always a well-read section for us.
That's great.
It's been a fun one to write about.
Really interesting, giving us a little bit of a cliffhanger. We'll stay posted with you, and we appreciate it. All right, now it's time for our Job Seeker segment, and we have a great guy here with us today, Matt Cameron. He's our job seeker. He's on the hot seat. And can you tell us a little bit about yourself, Matt?
Yeah, I'm a student, part-time student. I'm trying to get my bachelor's degree in marketing and management. I have pretty much worked full-time my whole life, and just now with kind of the economic downturn, it's been a lot tougher for me to find a job.
Well, this is a great story, Monique. You're going to love this. So I met Matt at a LaunchPad event, I don't know, maybe a month or two ago, and he came to a couple of them. But then all of a sudden I'm watching TV, and I see Matt on there with a sign, and they're showing footage of him, and he had created this website. It was just a great idea, very creative. So we really wanted to interview Matt today and let him talk a little about his idea and how he came up with it, and go ahead and kind of fill people in.
Yeah, the idea behind it was to find me a job, ultimately. The social media and the social networking sites that are out now are really taking control and are kind of becoming a tool for job finders out there. One nice thing about them is they're free. Anybody can get online, start up a social networking account, and begin to network with other people out there. So I knew I wanted to be online. But to be able to attract people to my website, I knew that I had to do something outlandish and to make myself stand out from the crowd. So I kind of drew from the panhandler epidemic that we have in Spokane.
Did it work?
It did. It was very successful, at least by my standards. I actually scheduled 10 interviews because of my efforts.
Wow, 10 interviews. How many hours did you spend
I was downtown for 6 hours total. I tried to hit peak traffic. I was from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. in the morning. I handed out about 13 resumes. Within that same amount of time, I got 1,500 unique page views to my website.
Didn't you also include a QR code?
I did. I wanted to show the people that marketing was my forte, and QR codes are very new. A lot of people are utilizing them now for their marketing efforts.
That's a really interesting story. And so you did get a job.
Well, you know, I haven't finalized a job yet. Out of those 10 interviews, I did get 7 legitimate job offers.
Wow.
And yeah, this following Monday, I will be making a decision on which job I'm going to take. It kind of positioned me to where I was interviewing the company. You know, they had interest in me and an interest in my talents, and so I went in kind of saying, well, what do you have to offer me?
Right.
Instead of what do I have to offer you, because they already knew at that point what I had to offer them.
And this is a great story, and I love hearing the creativity from job seekers that they're using social media, getting out on the street. I mean, that takes a lot of guts. And I'm sure you probably had your reservations in the beginning, but then you thought, I'm just going to do it and see what happens. And I love this story, and I think you're very creative, and we wish you the best of luck. And do you have any other advice for job seekers out there?
You know, what I really found made the difference was setting yourself apart from the crowd. You know, there are a lot of qualified applicants out there. There are a lot of jobs that they are qualified for and would be good at. But unfortunately, there's 10, 12, 15, sometimes hundreds of other people that are just as qualified as they are, if not more. Yeah, networking is a skill that a lot of job seekers need to have now, and it's a necessity for you to connect people that are within your industry and in your market.
That's right.
Love this story. Good luck on your career, and keep us posted on what you choose. Matt Cameron, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for being here. Next up, we have our tech segment, which I personally love. And I'm very excited to have Mr. Ed Reese of Six Man Marketing join us. Welcome, Ed.
Thanks.
Ed, you help companies to leverage their website to increase business. So what's really hot in your industry right now?
The biggest thing right now is mobile. Mobile is exploding. I knew that the economy was picking up on December 26th because mobile traffic literally increased 5%. Mobile adoption for a couple of really large clients that I track went from 18% to 23% on the day after Christmas. Coincidence? And I went back and looked back in the analytics, and it was all iPads, iPhones, high-end Android devices. So
everything's on the go now.
Everything's on the go. So mobile's huge right now.
So Ed, can you tell everybody a little bit about what you do, what your company does?
Yeah, so we optimize websites as well as online marketing campaigns. So what that means is we help discover what ailments a site has and help them fix any technical issues or user experience issues. A lot of times people will build a website just thinking they need to have one out there but not really think about why. So we help them figure out what it should do. How can it make the company more money? How can you measure that? What sort of goals should you set up? And how can you constantly test and improve? The big thing is just getting that constant state of improvement. And it's a lot like being an athlete. You don't just work out for the season and then you're done. You're constantly improving your technique, and that's what we do for companies.
So what are some of the most common mistakes you see when companies throw up a website?
Yeah, people obsess about something. Whether it's the color or a ranking or a type of social media. We have a lot of people that say, oh, we got to be number one. We got to be number one ranking for this term. And I'll say, that means nothing. And a lot of people are surprised when they say, oh, you're doing great. You rank for SEO in Spokane. You're number one or number two. Usually it's me and Chris Riley of Unleash going back and forth. In 3.5 years, I have yet to have a paying client from that keyword phrase. All of my clients have come from word of mouth, referral, speaking at LaunchPad events, teaching classes, teaching for free at a nonprofit, that kind of thing.
So what's the most important thing for a website?
Understanding the purpose. So really understanding the data and then what drives it. So SEO can be important. Social media can be important. Blogging, great content. All this stuff can be really important, but you have finite resources. Resources being time, personnel, money, all that. Understand what you need to get at the end, and then figure out what you can actually accomplish. If you're a small company of 3, 4, 5 people, well, you're gonna have a tough time doing all this stuff. So figure out what's really important and do it.
It's all about being realistic.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I know you are really up to date with what's going on with Google. They just announced earnings.
Yes.
But what's hot in Google world right now? What should people be aware of?
Google is attempting to force everyone to use Google+. So Google is strong-arming everyone to use it. There's a big rankings advantage right now by having a strong Google Plus profile, having a lot of people in your circles and using it well, but the adoption still isn't really happening yet for the average user. So they just had their earnings call yesterday. They hit it almost exactly. The other thing that's crazy is Google announced they're giving dividends. So they're giving dividends, and they're really claiming to focus on search. And it seems that they were kind of deviating with the social media stuff. Their earnings call pretty much indicated that they need to get on track. So if they actually follow through with their earnings call, I would expect more in search, particularly in mobile. Mobile right now is the big wild, wild west. Hardly any companies, large or small, are really supporting it. It's a big, big deal. I think we'll see mobile traffic a year from now to be about half of all internet traffic.
Wow.
Right now it's, depending on the industry, between say 12 and 24, 25%. A year from now I think it'll be about half of all traffic.
Yeah.
Really interesting stuff. Really interesting. So any final thoughts you'd like to add?
Nah, just go out there and have some fun. You know, get into tech. I mean, understand it. A lot of people are really afraid of the technology. It's fun, and you can learn how it can improve your business. And really embrace it. Don't be afraid of it. We have all sorts of learning events, conferences, things to attend that'll really help.
And keep it in perspective, though, right?
Yeah.
It's a tool. You got to use it the right way and work with professionals. Don't do this at home unless you know what you're doing, right?
You know, but research. So research, work with professionals, and understand as much as you can about what's relative to your business.
And encourage Monique to accept my Google Plus Circle friendship thing.
Exactly.
I mean,
Still,
exactly.
I don't know that I've received that yet.
Oh, another big tip. LinkedIn has purchased several companies in the last 4 to 6 months. LinkedIn is suddenly really good.
Yeah.
I've had more leads from LinkedIn in the last 3 to 4 months than the entire previous 5 years that I've used it. So LinkedIn is suddenly becoming valuable. Yeah.
Well, there you have it from the techie himself, and we mean that in a loving way.
Well, thank you.
Ed Reese, Sixth Man Marketing, and you can visit their website, www.sixthmanmarketing.com. Thank you, Ed. We're joined by Dave Curry, the president and CEO of Demand Energy Networks. We're really talking about clean and green, and Demand Energy is an energy solutions company based in Liberty Lake, Washington, right here locally. Dave, can you please tell us a little about your background as an entrepreneur?
Oh gosh, I've been doing this a long time. This is the fourth startup that I have started or been involved with. So I suppose I fit that classic definition of the serial entrepreneur. And 2 people in a garage to 500 employees, public company. I've kind of pretty much done everything. So.
And you also won an award, I think. Weren't you the Canadian Entrepreneur of the Year at one point?
I was.
Which company was that?
It was a software company that was the 2 guys in the garage with a crazy idea, and we were sort of your typical 10-year overnight success story.
Right.
And took the company public on NASDAQ and then sold it. And for that event, somebody deemed me worthy of that award. So
that's awesome. So we're here to talk about your latest venture. Can you tell us a little bit about Demand Energy and the market that you're in?
Being Canadian Entrepreneur of the Award, I am Canadian from Toronto, but I have lived here in Spokane and am now a U.S. citizen. I lived here for over 20 years now, and the experience that I've had here in Spokane has included local companies, Citron, and my own company back in Toronto, and more recently a local company here that I invested in, was a board member in, and ended up as CEO, which was Worldwide Packets. I ran across a fellow who had an idea about the most improbable of ideas, or improbable concepts, which was energy storage, and it was a distributed energy storage idea, and the notion here is to store electrons locally at commercial, industrial, or residential locations. Spent most of the summer of 2008 researching it, and decided in late 2008 to launch the business.
So you manufacture storage devices for the energy industry?
Yeah, we take a very much a systems approach to it. We store energy in various different battery chemistries. We've done a great deal of innovation in that area as well. But the systems approach includes not only the physical storage infrastructure, but it's the management of all of that. For example, let's say you've got a large commercial building and you have a lot of solar on that building. And the way the industry, the utility industry, builds the grid, they build the grid in order to meet peak demands. And consequently, that peaking philosophy and peaking architecture leaves an awful lot of idle capacity within the grid. They build the grid the same way. If you imagine you're going to build freeways through downtown Los Angeles, so that at rush hour you drove through downtown LA and everybody drove at 60 miles an hour, right? Because it's built to meet the peaks. It would be 2 to 3 times the size that it is today, what the freeways would be. That's how they build the grid. Because at 4 o'clock on a hot summer afternoon, and you go turn that air conditioning on, it's got to go on. Or you turn that light on, it has to go on. What that results in is an awful lot of idle capacity. Average utilization of the grid in North America runs 40 to 42%. So 58 to 60% of the time, it's idle. There's nothing happening, really, basically. So when you bring together some of the new technologies, distributed generation technologies like wind and solar, which occurs at commercial locations, it seldom, if ever, coincides with when peak demand is. Peak demand is 4 till 7 in the afternoon. In the Northwest, on average, the wind blows 1/3 of the time, and 90% of the time that it blows, when we get maximum output, is at night. We don't need it at night. We don't want it. Bonneville Power doesn't want it. Similarly with solar, peak solar efficiency occurs at midday, and we don't need it at midday. We need it at 4 in the afternoon. So if I can TiVo the energy, capture it at night,
now I
store it.
This whole time, I get it now. That
if I
makes
can
sense.
capture it and store it and put it back in the grid, when it has the highest economic value, because utilities charge more for energy at 4 in the afternoon than they do at 4 in the morning.
Right.
So
Really?
in different parts of the country, they charge more. What's called time of use pricing. California and New York, big time delta between off-peak and peak. In Northwest, not so much, although that is changing.
Interesting stuff, and clearly it's taken off. And you've just had a really interesting development with the New York real estate development. Can you tell us about that?
We got involved in New York almost a couple of years ago. The business has been going now for over 3 years. And we spent the initial 18 months to 2 years doing commercialization of our products. So we're ready. We've been shipping product now since September of last year. Monthly, we have product going out the door to customers. This is a family, the Leonard Litwin family. They own 30 existing high-rise apartment buildings in all over 50 stories. Glenwood Properties, it's called. So one of the strategies to reduce the operational impact of really hot weather in the summertime in New York City is to employ a strategy called demand response, which effectively incents businesses and buildings to reduce their consumption during that peak period to kind of spread the pain broadly across in this case, the city. And in the case of this particular real estate development project, our company, that's what they do. And so can you imagine a 55-story building where rents can range as much, or can go as high as $20,000 to $25,000 a month for some of these apartments? And their participation in this program involves putting a sign on the elevator that says it's out of order, unplugging the washers and dryers, unplugging the exercise equipment, and turning the temperature up in the common space to 80 degrees. So what we're doing here is reducing the consumption in the building in order to participate in an effort to reduce the load within a portion of New York City. Well, that's a non-starter. I mean, you're 20 grand a month and you walk in and you can't go up in the elevator to your penthouse. So the building owner said, if I could store energy, when that event occurs, I can draw from the stored energy, and I don't have to do these unpalatable things for my tenants. So we installed a system, a couple of systems about 9-10 months ago, and it worked flawlessly. And they have decided to extend the program now, and we've just actually this week received a commitment to do the first building, which is about $1.2 million for the building. We have another 29 buildings to go over the course of probably the next 18 months. And we've now opened discussions with the Public Housing Authority in New York City. This is a $1 trillion market for energy storage. We are participating at the creation of an industry that does not exist. Energy is has a just-in-time delivery model, and we are right at the leading edge of this.
That's great.
Wow.
So what are the biggest challenges companies like Demand Energy face in trying to break into this market? Is it education? Is it the education that is a new market, so you got to start there?
Looking at any new venture, and anybody that's listening and is participating in this here today will know that there's generally 3 areas of risk in a new company. You've got product and technology risk. Does the product do what it's supposed to do? Does it meet the price points? Then there is execution risk. Do you have a team that really knows how to do this? Do they have the experience? Have they ever done anything before? Do they have a track record of being able to execute? And the last one is market risk. Is the market there for what you're trying to sell them? And as I do an honest appraisal of where we are right now, we have conquered the execution risk. I've got a very strong team. We're very, very experienced at building and scaling companies. Product and technology, we've eliminated a lot of that technology risk on the hardware and the software and the integration of all of that technology. Our big risk is market risk. It's the rate of adoption. Our market is domestically in California and in the Northeast, and we're very active there. And interestingly enough, offshore. Energy consumption in this country is growing about 1 to 1.5% a year. In China, it's growing close to 1% a month. Whatever the problem is we have here, it's an order of magnitude greater in China.
Right.
So we have employees there now, and so it's market adoption. That's the big risk, Bill.
Okay.
So you're doing a lot of work on the East Coast, in California, overseas.
Yes.
But are you hiring locally? Do you have your team locally?
Yeah. All of our team, with the exception of salespeople, are here in Spokane. So we do all of our product development and we do all of our system assembly integration here in Spokane. As we grow the business, we're going to have to do some of those jobs in the other markets. I can't be assembling everything. I mean, I'm buying things from China, shipping it to Spokane. I can't assemble it and then ship it back to China. That's crazy. Right. So I've got to start doing some of those kinds of things in China. But we're working with a number of other local companies. The knock-on effect of working with other companies in Spokane has been I'm always surprised at the number of very capable companies that are doing really, really interesting things at a world-class level that are right here in Spokane that we're tapping into in order to support our product development and product integration process. So.
Yeah, we'd love to hear that. Partnerships are key, especially in the startup phase, right, and breaking into markets. So, Dave, can you tell us, since we're kind of winding down here in the discussion, what's the future hold for Demand Energy Networks? Where do you see this in maybe the next 3 to 5 years?
Well, why do you do this? I mean, why do you start a company? I mean,
my wife asks me that every day.
Every day. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm on my 4th now. And well, you do it for a variety of reasons, but if you're out there trying to attract really good employees, really intelligent, hardworking people, and at the same time trying to attract capital, there has to be a reward at some point in time in the process, right? And your options in terms of that are more limited. They've been in the past. I mean, taking a company public and run a public company for 5 years, talking to analysts every 90 days, setting and managing expectations, it's challenging. That option is kind of off the table. So in order to get that realization of a reward for your employees and your investors, you end up having to merge it with a bigger company. Those opportunities at this stage of where we're at are not in front of us, and we're not looking for them. We're trying to grow the business, focus on execution, being as profitable as we can be, and those events start to take care of themselves somewhat at some point down the road. So we're focused on growing it, making it viable, looking at opportunities from a global perspective, and those rewards start to take care of themselves. One day somebody comes and knocks on your door and says, I have a global sales force, I need product, I need technology. I think we can help each other in that regard. So that's
great. We are certainly glad that you came to join us today.
Thank you.
I think we're going to take some questions from the audience next. So let's give Dave a round of applause.
My name is Steve Anderson. I'm with Mammoth Renewables. And I just had a quick question, Dave. One of the reasons that we're looking at renewable resources is the cost of conventional resources. And in the past year or so, with the natural gas fines, we've seen gas prices plummet. And traditionally in the utility industry, what's caused the differential between on-peak and off-peak is a difference in the cost of generation between baseload and peaking resources. The fuel cost from a baseload plant traditionally has been a lot lower than the cost of natural gas-fired generation. So it appears that in New York, maybe it's more an infrastructure issue with transmission than it is with the generation, because right now, with gas prices as low as they are, there wouldn't be that much of a on-peak, off-peak differential between natural gas and a baseload resource. So just wondering how that affects your future marketing issues and how you look at natural gas pricing and the price of our native traditional use source.
I'm worried about it. I really am. And I think as a country we should be concerned about it and its impact on renewable resources, because it puts into jeopardy, I think, a lot of the clean energy generation projects like wind and solar. Having said that, other countries don't have that same, the benefit of cheap natural gas like China. And so that we may find some foreign markets more appealing than some of the domestic markets. But the utility industry has been burned before, as you know, and what they thought was going to be an infinite supply of cheap gas, and it just takes one negative ruling from the EPA relative to groundwater safety that might put a little bit of a speed bump in the road, or a big one in the road of that. So it will be interesting to follow that as it plays out.
Did these companies come from a passion of yours in your life, or did it kind of breed from necessity in the marketplace?
Perhaps a combination of both, but recognizing that there was an opportunity, and I think most importantly a willingness to walk off into the unknown and trying to create something when nothing exists. I made the comment earlier about a 10-year overnight success story. It takes a long time. If you're thinking of starting a company and you're not willing to sign up for 10 years, or your family and the other half of your personal relationship is not ready to sign up for 10 years, don't do it, because you got to be prepared for a 10-year run. So it's hard. So I've been lucky. I've worked hard. Most importantly, I've surrounded myself with incredibly competent people. Pretty much all of them smarter than me. But I've just seen opportunities, and I've been willing to take the risk.
Well, I'd like to thank everyone for being here today and for watching the show. If you want to learn more about LaunchPad, you can go to launchpadinw.com, where you can also sign up for our weekly newsletter. We include our workshops and events and also our services, but we also want to connect you to local resources. And so we encourage you to check out the site or sign up for the newsletter. Also, if you have feedbacks about this show or maybe some segments you'd like to see, why don't you send us a message via Twitter at LaunchPadINW, or you can like us on our LaunchPad Live Facebook page.
Well, thank you so much for joining us for LaunchPad Live. As always, it is our goal to help you to connect with the best and the brightest of our community. We've definitely done that today. And to inspire you to achieve your personal definition of success. Remember, it's all about relationships. Thanks for joining us.